Hello folks, this is Mighty Scon here with another episode of Feed the Beast Revelation, and we are on episode 26. And so, not much is updated. I'm trying to play around with the trees and make them look a little darker and see what we can do to spruce this place up and make it look a little more bleak, if you will. And we'll spend the majority of this episode going over the next part of NuclearCraft. So, let's get right into it. Alright, so now let's talk about the oxidized process and how we can build out a better fuel by oxidizing it. So what we need to do now is build out the fluid infuser. So this is what we inject the cells with the liquids in, is this. And so we need some advanced platings, which is the whole process of going through that. And we also need a bit fluid infuser. Okay. So we need some platings, 4 platings. Then we also need the factory and alloy furnace. I think I already have that made. So let's make the alloy furnace. I need to make 2 more plates. Oops. And then we can make the advanced plating. We just need 2 more of these. And that. Oh, we need some tough alloys. Okay, I'll have to make some tough alloys. Which tough alloy is just the ferroboron and lithium, which I have both of those things. So I'll go do that, and then I will be right back. Alright, I've made the alloy furnace and the advanced platings, and we should be able to make our fluid infuser. There we go. And so the other component of this is the electrolyzer. So this also requires advanced platings and a salt mixer and a manufacturing electrolyzer. There we go. Alright, so we have our 2 machines. There is, so let's put, this will need a flow of water. So what we need to do is run some power. I don't need any other items, but I will need some fluid conduit. And signalium, do I have signalium? Yeah, I do. Okay, good. So let's just do some of those, and then let's just get some power ones. Because what I'm going to need to do now is power this device, fluid infuser, and then I'll have to eventually power this and run the fluids up into it from below. Alright. And so if we look at the recipes for the electrolyzer, it's pretty much water and then hydrofluoric acid. So for now, all I really use this for is for water. So let me just go grab, that was weird, it's a lag. Grab a tank of water. This should be a good one. I've been enchanting my tanks so there's a lot of water inside of them. And I am going to need some drums. So let's get some drums. I have drums. Okay, I have 2. I will need 3, and I will need some fluid duct. So what we're going to do is we're going to pipe out the liquid from here, and pipe in the liquid there, but we don't want to connect them. And we will need to have So let's go, this one would be the oxygen. And you know what, let's do this. I don't know which fluid's going to come out first, so we'll have to drop them at a time as this thing pipes out liquids. We'll place one, and then it'll pipe out again, and I'll place another one, and then we'll have each of those will be filled up with their individual liquids. So let's go get our water container. And this is just temporary. I'm just going to do this just for demonstration, but I will fill it up, or I will have an aqueous accumulator below this device. And I hope it goes below. I know sometimes it doesn't pipe in from below. You have to go from the top. So that would be, I'll have to move this entire block at some point then if that's the case. Alright, so let's get it some power, or some fluids. There we go. It's got 16 bucket tank. And it does require, yeah, you can see it's a very slow process to do this. And when I put in, let's just put in a couple of these, I'll show you that increase. So now it's 40, and now we're at 400. Look at the energy, it's just dropping. So it can't even handle that much energy. It'll handle 1. We'll need to upgrade these pipes. Then I'll show you the fluids in here. It'll show you deuterium, hydrogen, and oxygen. And I will need to have a servo. There we have one. So let's just pipe this out the back and see what comes out. So it looks like it's hydrogen. So let's put hydrogen here. So that is hydrogen. And then the next one is deuterium. And then the last one is going to be oxygen. Yeah. Oxygen there. And there we go. We have oxygen going in here. So now we need to pipe the oxygen back into here. But what I want to do first is get a bucket of that. And then I can filter only oxygen that goes in here. Yeah, we're at 1500 already. So let's grab a bucket and let's put down a filter. Right, list oxygen. So only oxygen will now travel this path and go into here. Alright, so what we want to do now is get another servo, and let's get some fuel. Let's just grab 2 of those. I do want to show you the power jump whenever we do this. So that will come out of here into here, and I don't know how much it needs to do this. 1,000 millibuckets. Oxygen? Oh, this is 4,000. Okay, so the fuel rods need 4,000. So we need to wait for this thing to get to, well, there it is, 4,000. And there's the effects. And then let's go see where we are with our other cells. Hopefully we're getting close. What I did was I have this. I added an RF monitor. So whenever this is at 60%, it will shut off essentially. So less than 60%, it'll feed a redstone signal to it, and when it's more, it stops feeding a redstone signal, and so it's just, you see it's just clicking off and on right now. And let's grab this. I need to drain this power, so let's go in the quarry again, and then I'll drain this power. Alright. So this is pretty much the process for creating the oxidized fuel cells, and these things take a while. Probably to the point where I probably should put one in here at least. to speed it up. And I'll go run the quarry so that thing depletes. Okay, I'm gonna run the quarry, and yeah, you can see how much I've ran this thing. It is pretty much on most of the time. Let's go about here. Let's go this far. I've been doing it in like I think like 7 blocks or 7 chunks at a time, but for now I'm just gonna make sure that it's not. Let's make this half. And there we go. So this thing should be going down. This thing should be drained. And so when this is done, we'll have a depleted cell that we can process. And so that's the next step, really, is to make a fuel reprocessor. And so that requires advanced, so we need some advanced plates. And we can get bronze, an alloy furnace, so that whole thing, it shouldn't be hard to make, but then this is how you get the higher end materials. So you just continuously process them into higher grade materials. But like I said, it takes, for this to go down, it takes a while. And this thing it's doing pretty good, 720. But now the increase we get, so let's okay, so we have 2, and see it says TBU oxide fuel rods. So now we have 2 of those. And you can see the base power is much higher. And so what I'm going to do, I don't think this is consumed. Yeah, okay, so it's not consumed. It consumes one, and then it starts the process. So now whenever this is done with this process here, we'll see the power increase, and we'll also see the heat increase. And the heat should be just right at 0, or it should be pretty close to 0, but it'll still be in the negatives. I think it was -20 when I tested it. Alright, I am back, and we have our depleted TBU fuel rod. And then there we go, 1008 RF per tick at -20 heat per tick. So that's what the oxide does to this. So we went up about 300 RF, and we're down to -20. So this is a very efficient build for a reactor. I like this. This is about as close as you can get with heat per tick. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to oxidize most of these TBU fuel rods. It takes a while for them to burn down, so I don't need to have it continuously processing like I've been doing in there. I don't need the speed upgrades in there because it takes a while. And so this thing will keep running. And this says, so it's 120 minutes essentially for that thing to burn down. So every 120 minutes, it's Cooper. I'm sorry, yeah, Enderman. And so there we go. This is as long as we get a new one every 120 minutes, we are fine. And so we can put another one in there and just continuously feed this fluid infuser. And like I said, I will automate this process, but that is pretty much how we increase our fuel rods. Now, if this was built differently, this reactor was built differently, you may have to adjust what's actually inside the reactor. And so what I typically do is I typically go into a test world, and I build these to test with and see what actually works, and see what gets me as close to 0 as possible with the most amount of RF. And so this reactor here, so we have a pretty good amount of power right now in here. And the best thing to do, I think, is to just make a couple more of these. I'll have to expand out that way, which I'll get my quarry to do. And then we'll have many of these, so then we'll just increase 1000 RF per tick per reactor. And I do have to go and make the components for that, but I don't think that'll be a problem right now. So that is the oxidization process. So now the next process we want to look at is what to do with our depleted fuel rods. And so what we will do is take a look at the fuel reprocessor. So I'll go build one of these, and then I will show you what that does. Okay, I'm back and I have my fuel reprocessor, and pretty much it's just a you just drop your depleted fuel rod in there of any kind, even the high-end ones, low-end ones, does not matter. And you can then recover the materials you put into it, plus some higher-end materials. Now you don't get all of the lower-end materials, but you do get the higher-end materials for it. So we have some uranium now from our thorium, neptunium, more neptunium, and then some more uranium. And so, as far as I know, this is the only way I can get 233 uranium. I'm not sure of any other way to get 233 uranium. 235 will come from the just the isotopes of actually the uranium grid that you can make. So if you look up uranium, and if we look at up uranium here, 233 is actually a pretty good version of uranium. It's kind of a lower tier than 235 and 238, but it's definitely pretty efficient. And so we can actually make a 233. Let's see, 233. So we can get a lower version of this or a higher version. So high enriched requires 4 233 uraniums. I think I only have enough for 1 right now. So let's see, we have 16. Yeah, I only have enough for 1. And we have some more clumps of this neptunium. Neptunium's pretty good. Neptunium is the next tier up from uranium. So thorium's kind of the low tier. Then you have uranium, and you have neptunium, and plutonium. And beyond that, you get into some higher end stuff like californium and americanium. Those are really higher tier stuff. Yeah, here they are. Cerium, americanium, and so you get into some really high-end stuff there, and we will get there. It definitely won't be in this series. It will be in another series when I have enough time to get enough thorium and uranium and then plutonium, and I gradually go up to the next tier. I'll have to just talk about, once I get to the next tier, I'll talk about that particular tier. I won't do a whole episode dedicated to that, but I will talk about the tier and how much production it is and the fission reactor I built for that tier. Because each tier will require a specifically built reactor. And so now we are at 233, and I can make, I think I will probably make the LEU oxide one. So it's just an LEU, then we run it through the oxide, the fluid infuser. Then we can oxidize it. I say oxidize, I'm not sure if that's the actual technical term for it. I'm just saying that's that's the term I'm using for it. So 1 233 and then 238s, which we have all 238s. And so what we get from that is an LEU fuel rod. And so this produces 144 tick at 60 HT. So 60 H per tick compared to what we have now is 84. And so, I'm sorry, that's 22.5. So what we need to do is we need to expand our reactor just slightly to get into the LEU 233. And this one's just 60 heat a tick. So it's a slightly different build, and I think a 3x3 should be sufficient enough for this. So as you can see, like this is how you progress. You can build a different reactor, or you can build onto the same reactor, just a few more blocks. and then you get the then you can increase the output of the heat and also the output of the RF per tick, because that's 144 RF per tick. I do like the quad fuel cells, but I think now is a good time to talk about the graphite blocks. So a graphite block, you can connect it to a reactor cell, and it increases the efficiency, not as much as having two blocks, two cells together, but it doesn't produce as much heat either. So you're reducing the amount of heat it produces overall, and you're also increasing the efficiency. So it's a small amount of increase compared to the compared to having two cells next to each other. So this is where you start getting to some of the math and some of the playing around. So now that we have the different fuel tiers, what I probably will do is build a 233 fuel rod. I don't think I'm going to oxidize this first one because I don't want to jump too far ahead. Yeah, it's not going to be that much of a jump, really. 15 heat per tick. I don't know. I'll build a specific reactor for this one, and then I will come back and I will show you that new reactor, and then you'll be able to see kind of the increase in the jumps. So I mean, this is the process, and you can literally spend days and days just messing around with each one of these. And if you like the numbers and if you like doing that sort of thing, this is a fun mod to dive into. All right, let's make this 233. And we need to make this in here. There we go. So we now have a 233 fuel. Like I said before, we can skip into the 235s. You can do a 235 if you want. It's a little bit less heat gen, a little less power gen. 233. And what I would do as well is look at the outputs as well. So if you're trying to get to a specific output, so if we click on this one and we see what the output is in a fission reactor, and then we see, so we get plutonium 239, 241, 242, and americanium 243. Another thing that you can do with this is you can make the RTGs. For the RTG, there are different kind of RTGs you can build, and what they are, there's blocks that constantly produce RF per tick. And there's americanium, so plutonium RTG, which requires a 238 plutonium, will let you produce a 100 RF per tick block. So this block will constantly produce 100 RF per tick. And I don't think this one decays. Some of the other blocks do decay. I don't think the RTGs will decay. It's not at this point in time. And here's a californium. So californium is kind of like the end game stuff. That's where you get your highest tier, highest level of production from it. And you, like I said, you can produce these blocks, which require just the plutonium isotope, just one of them, or just the americanium RTG, or you can even make I can make a uranium right now. I can just get a depleted uranium block, which is just 9 238 uraniums in a block, and I can get a single block that produces 4 RF per tick forever. And that's a step you could take as well. This is kind of like the early game stuff. This is what I was saying before. This is an early game option to have a kind of permanent production of RF from this. And it's really only, if you look at the solar panels, it's from here, it isn't that much of a difference in RF per tick. This is only during the daytime, whereas the other one is produced at night and day. It's just a eternal production of power. All right, so I will make a new fuel rod, and then we will do a non-oxidized version of this and put it into a reactor, and then I will show you the proper setup for that reactor. Alright, I'm up in my power room now, and I cleared out another area using my builder and a clearing quarry card. And so what I wanted to show you was the this build. I do need a few more blocks. I need some more lapis coolers. But I wanted to start off the build and show you just how it works. So these are probably the best. 140 heat per tick is the best you're going to get for coolers. And these require them to be on the corners, so they need to touch at least 3 reactor casings, which pretty much means it needs to be on a corner. So there you go. You have the bottom, and you have the sides, so it's 3. So you always want to have these in your corners, because they definitely are the best. It's kind of just a rule that you can follow no matter what. Alright, so I made lapis coolers because they have a 100 heat per tick loss, and it says you must touch at least 1 reactor cell and 1 reactor casing. So for 100 heat loss, they can touch 1 cell. So here's a cell and 1 casing. So there you go, touching the cell and the casing below it, and even one on the side too. And I'm going to actually stack another one on top of this cell, so you get some bonus there, and that's another bonus. So this one in the middle is getting 2 bonuses, and we're going to have that, 3 bonuses. So this actually has 4 surrounding it, and then you get a double here, double there, and so forth. And the middle one also I'm going to do graphite blocks, and the graphite, I'll just show you that. So it says is only considered active if touching at least 1 reactor cell. So it has to touch a reactor cell, then it's active. And when it's active, it increases a reactor's efficiency and also produces some extra heat. So it's not as good as this combination, but it's a good way to tune your reactor to a certain heat level. So if I were to put another cell here instead of a graphite block, my reactor would get too hot. And I'm going to, so I'm touching a casing here and touching a cell here. So I'm going to put some lapis here, lapis there, lapis there, lapis there. So I'm dissipating some heat with these lapis blocks because they are fulfilling their rule. And there are blocks that dissipate heat from the graphite blocks specifically. So like the glowstone one, and it has to touch 2 graphite blocks. The quartz one has to touch at least 1, but it's only 80 heat per tick loss. So you can play around with it. But this build that I have here is going to be good enough, trust me. Then we'll do the opposite here, and then we put our endurium in the corners. So all these blocks here, this should be the build. So this is the reactor build, and this should produce a pretty good amount of power. And I actually went ahead and made a oxide version of the low enriched uranium 233. So it's an oxide version, so it does produce more heat, but this reactor is tuned to that more extra heat. So it'll work for the oxide and non-oxided version. I bet the non-oxide version you could get away with putting a cell instead of a graphite block. But I'm going to build this one, and I will show you the output. And the block I'm waiting on is I need to make my reactor controller. So let me go grab that one. Alright, I'm back, and I got my fission controller. And let's see what this thing does. So it's got -2 2320 heat per tick loss already. Throw that in there, and look at that, 169 and 2872 RF per tick. So that's a big jump from this. It's 1,000. We have 2872. And we have a negative 169 heat loss, which means it's going to be, it'll never gain heat with this build at 285% efficiency. So this is the next step up using the 233 uranium. And it's a 3x3 block, and I think it's a pretty efficient build. And it's so this will breed us some plutonium. And I'm having a hard time filling these things up because one of these, this thing right here, will produce probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 million RF over its life. So I need to get some more places to store power. Maybe some more of these. Might actually just take this thing and start pumping stuff into this. And I don't think this one's even, it's not even enchanted. So let's get this thing enchanted. And look at that, 54 million RF per tick. Or 54 million RF. So now we can power this on and get it pumping this thing full power. And let's turn that on. And there we go. That's a good amount of power. This system right here replaces that wall, that entire wall. So it's a pretty good, yeah, the entire wall is replaced for that. So actually this one actually is even better than the entire wall. So I mean these are definitely beneficial, and it's a little time consuming in building them, but you can see that we can quickly grow. I mean, this is the second tier. I would call this tier 2 as far as what they produce. This is uranium based, and we can get into some serious power generation with these. So that is it. I thank you for watching. I appreciate it, and I hope you learned something. Bye.